the 8th of March, 2024. Southern Beirut, Dahi District. A funeral procession wound through narrow streets toward the cemetery. Hundreds of mourners chanting. Flags bearing Hezbollah's yellow and green snapping in the afternoon wind. At the graveside, armed fighters formed ranks, Kalashnikov rifles held at chest height. The traditional gun salute was about to begin 7 volleys, fired in sequence, echoing across the district as they had at dozens of funerals before. At 14:39 local time, the first volley cracked through the air, then the second, then the third. Between the fourth and fifth volleys, precisely timed to the peak of the acoustic chaos, a missile struck. The explosion tore through the crowd's center. One man dropped, killed instantly. Chaos erupted screams, confusion, fighters scanning rooftops for snipers. But no gunman appeared. No second shot followed. It took Hezbollah security nearly 3 minutes to understand. This had not come from a rooftop. It had come from above. A drone had fired during the gun salute itself, the missile's launch masked completely by the thunder of celebratory gunfire. By the time they looked skyward, the aircraft was gone. The challenge Israeli intelligence faced was threefold. First, civilian density. Hezbollah funerals draw hundreds to thousands of mourners, families, community members, children. A traditional airstrike using F-16 seconds or armed helicopters would produce mass casualties. Politically, such an operation was untenable. International condemnation would be swift. Lebanese civilian deaths would fuel recruitment for Hezbollah and complicate Israel's strategic positioning. Even precision munitions designed to minimize collateral damage carried unacceptable risk in crowds of this size. Second, Hezbollah's counter-surveillance apparatus. The organization learned from decades of Israeli targeting operations. Before major funerals, security teams deploy electronic warfare systems, jammers targeting GPS signals, communications frequencies, and remote detonation triggers. Lookouts equipped with binoculars and radios position themselves on rooftops with clear sight lines to the sky. Mobile patrols circle the perimeter, searching for suspicious vehicles or reconnaissance teams. The airspace above southern Beirut is monitored constantly, and Hezbollah maintains communication links with Lebanese military radar installations that can detect Israeli aircraft penetrations. Third, and most critically, asset exposure. Israeli drones, typically Hermes 450 or Hermes 900 variants, produce a distinct motor signature. At standard operational altitudes of 1,000 to 1,500 meters, the noise is faint but detectable in quiet environments. Hezbollah operatives trained to recognize the sound, described as a high-pitched whine or buzzing. During normal operations in southern Lebanon, ambient noise from traffic, construction, and daily life can mask drone presence. But at a funeral, where security is heightened and the crowd occasionally falls silent during prayers or speeches, a drone hovering overhead becomes audible. Detection triggers immediate response. Fighters scan the sky, shoulder-fired anti-aircraft missiles can be deployed, and the target, aware of the threat, takes cover or flees. Israeli doctrine, prior to 2023, avoided targeting individuals during funerals for these reasons. Strikes occurred before or after public appearances, at private residences, or in vehicles on isolated roads. Funerals were considered operationally off-limits, not for ethical reasons, but because the tactical challenges outweighed the benefits. Yet this doctrine created a paradox. The more Israel avoided funerals, the safer they became for Hezbollah's leadership. High-value commanders who otherwise remained in hiding would surface during these ceremonies, confident in the protective value of the crowd and the organization's security measures. Intelligence assessments indicated that several senior operatives attended funerals regularly, knowing Israeli surveillance assets were watching but calculating correctly that strikes were unlikely. In late 2023, Israeli military intelligence began exploring solutions. Initial discussions focused on acoustic masking, a concept borrowed from submarine warfare and urban counter-terrorism operations. The principle is straightforward. Loud environmental noise can render other sounds inaudible, creating temporary windows for covert action. Submarines hide propeller noise beneath ocean thermal layers. Special forces time breaching explosions to coincide with thunder or nearby construction. The question became, could the gun salute at a Hezbollah funeral provide sufficient acoustic cover to mask a drone strike? Preliminary analysis was promising. Kalashnikov rifle fire generates approximately 150 to 160 decibels at the muzzle, though this decreases with distance. At 50 meters, a typical crowd radius during funerals, the sound measures 95 to 105 decibels. When multiple rifles fire in volley, the effect compounds. Recordings from previous Hezbollah funerals showed peak acoustic levels reaching 110 to 115 decibels during salutes, sustained for 30 to 90 seconds, depending on the number of volleys. Israeli drone motor noise, by contrast, measures approximately 60 to 70 decibels at 1,000 meters altitude in open air. Human auditory masking studies indicate that sounds differing by more than 30 decibels become difficult to distinguish when occurring simultaneously. During a funeral gun salute, the differential would be 40 to 50 decibels, theoretically sufficient to render the drone inaudible. But theory required verification. Intelligence units began detailed acoustic mapping. They recorded audio from 8 Hezbollah funerals between November 2023 and February 2024, using signals intercept equipment positioned kilometers away. Analysts measured volley timing, intensity, and duration. They identified patterns. Salutes typically began 60 to 90 seconds after the coffin reached the grave, lasted between 45 and 120 seconds, and followed a rhythmic structure with 3 to 5 second gaps between volleys. The data revealed a critical window. Peak acoustic output occurred during the middle of the salute, the 4th through 7th volleys, when all rifles fired in near unison. This window lasted 15 to 25 seconds. If a strike could be executed within that time frame, the drone's approach, the missile launch, and even the initial explosion might blend into the overwhelming noise of the ceremony itself. The operational concept began to solidify. Not a traditional airstrike, but a precision drone engagement synchronized to the funeral's own rituals. The noise intended to honor Hezbollah's dead would be weaponized to kill its living. In the months preceding the strike, Israeli intelligence focused on 3 elements: target selection, operational rehearsal, and real-time coordination architecture. The target emerged from ongoing surveillance of Hezbollah's weapons procurement network. Intelligence reports identified a mid-level commander responsible for coordinating Iranian missile shipments through Syria into Lebanon. His name, withheld from public disclosure, appeared in intercepted communications and informant reports. He operated from southern Beirut, rarely appearing in public, maintaining strict operational security. But analysis of his patterns revealed a vulnerability. He attended funerals of fallen operatives under his command. Unit cohesion within Hezbollah is strong, and commanders are expected to honor their dead. Israeli planners assessed the risk-reward calculation. The target was not a strategic-level commander like Hassan Nasrallah or Ibrahim Akil, whose deaths would trigger major escalation. He was significant enough to disrupt weapons logistics, but not so prominent that his elimination would provoke full-scale war. The strike, if successful, would test the acoustic masking doctrine without crossing escalation thresholds that might ignite broader conflict. Operational rehearsal began in January 2024. Israeli drone units conducted simulated strikes using recorded audio from Hezbollah funerals. Operators practiced timing missile launches to coincide with acoustic peaks in the salute recordings. The margin for error was narrow. Launch the missile too early, and the drone's descent becomes audible before the volleys reach maximum intensity. Launch too late, and the salute ends, leaving the missile's flight exposed to detection. Simulations revealed the need for real-time audio monitoring. Pre-planned timing was insufficient because salutes varied. Some lasted 45 seconds, others stretched to 2 minutes, depending on the number of fighters participating and the crowd's emotional intensity. Israeli intelligence required a ground-level signal someone at the funeral itself, capable of transmitting the exact moment when acoustic conditions reached optimal levels. Human intelligence assets were evaluated. Mossad maintains a network of informants within Lebanon, some embedded in Hezbollah's periphery, others in the broader Shia community. Recruiting an asset with access to funeral grounds was possible, but carried risks. If the individual was detected, the entire operation would be compromised, and the informant would face execution. The alternative was technical surveillance, remote audio sensors deployed near cemeteries, transmitting real-time sound data to Israeli signals intelligence units. Both methods were prepared. Sources familiar with Israeli operations in Lebanon indicate that multiple redundant systems were put in place, ensuring that even if one failed, the strike could proceed. The coordination architecture required unprecedented synchronization. 3 elements had to align within a 10 to 15 second window: ground-level audio confirmation that the salute had reached peak intensity, drone positioning at strike altitude, and missile launch authorization from command. Any delay or miscommunication would collapse the operation. Israeli military intelligence established a direct encrypted link between ground observers, whether human or sensor-based, and the drone operations center. The protocol was designed for minimal latency. Once the signal was transmitted, indicating optimal acoustic conditions, the drone operator would have 5 seconds to authorize launch. The missile, likely a Spike variant with a warhead yield calibrated to minimize fragmentation beyond a 3-meter radius, would require 8 to 12 seconds to reach the target from release altitude. Weather became a critical variable. Wind speed affects both drone stability and sound propagation. High winds can scatter acoustic energy, reducing the masking effect. Rain introduces additional ambient noise, but also complicates targeting precision. Israeli meteorological units began monitoring weather patterns over southern Beirut, identifying optimal strike windows: clear skies, light winds below 15 kilometers per hour, dry conditions. Drone selection favored the Hermes 450, a medium-altitude long-endurance platform with an operational ceiling of 5,500 meters and a loiter time exceeding 20 hours. Its motor noise signature at 2,500 meters is approximately 65 decibels at ground level in quiet conditions, detectable, but not during a 110 decibel gun salute. The aircraft was equipped with electro-optical targeting pods capable of identifying individuals from altitude and precision-guided munitions with selectable yield settings. By early March 2024, the operation was fully developed. Intelligence monitored the target's movements, waiting for confirmation he would attend an upcoming funeral. The trigger event came on March 6. A Hezbollah operative under the target's command was killed in an Israeli airstrike in southern Lebanon. The funeral was announced for March 8 at 14 local time in Dahiyeh. Intelligence sources confirmed the target's attendance. Final authorization moved through Israeli military and political channels. The operation required approval from the Prime Minister and Defense Minister due to the novel tactics and potential for exposure if the strike failed. Approval was granted on March 7, with contingencies. If civilian density exceeded projections, if weather deteriorated, or if Hezbollah altered funeral protocols, the operation would abort. Every variable had been mapped, every contingency planned. The only remaining factor was execution. The 7th of March 2024, 18 local time. Intelligence confirmation arrived. The target would attend the funeral scheduled for the following afternoon. Israeli drone units received deployment orders. The Hermes 450 launched from an airbase in northern Israel at 22:30. Flight time to the operational zone over southern Lebanon was approximately 45 minutes. The aircraft climbed to 3,200 meters, well above the altitude where its motor noise would be audible from the ground, and began a slow, clockwise orbit over Beirut's southern suburbs. Lebanese air defense radar detected the presence. Israeli drones violated Lebanese airspace routinely, and the Lebanese military lacked the capability or political will to intercept them. Hezbollah's radar network also tracked the aircraft, but a single high-altitude drone was not considered an imminent threat. Standard procedure for Hezbollah was to monitor Israeli drones and activate jamming if they descended below 2,000 meters or loitered directly over sensitive installations. The drone remained at altitude through the night, its electro-optical sensors scanning the streets below. Operators in Israel cycled in shifts, maintaining constant surveillance. At 8 on March 8, weather conditions were assessed. Clear skies over Beirut, wind speed measured at 8 kilometers per hour from the west, well within acceptable parameters. Visibility exceeded 10 kilometers. Conditions were optimal. Ground-level preparation began hours before the funeral. Israeli intelligence assets, human or technical, positioned themselves near the cemetery in Dahiyeh. The exact nature of these assets remains classified, but operational doctrine suggests a combination of remote audio sensors and human observers. The sensors, if deployed, would have been placed days or weeks in advance, disguised as mundane urban objects, utility boxes, discarded electronics, or building fixtures. They transmitted real-time audio feeds to Israeli signals intelligence units via encrypted satellite links. Human observers, if used, would have embedded themselves in the crowd or positioned in nearby buildings with clear sightlines to the cemetery. Their role was twofold: visual confirmation of the target's presence and real-time assessment of crowd density and movement patterns. Communications would have been minimal, a single coded transmission to confirm target arrival and acoustic readiness. At 12:30, Hezbollah security teams began sweeping the cemetery perimeter. Electronic jamming equipment activated, targeting GPS and remote detonation frequencies. Lookouts took positions on rooftops. The security cordon extended approximately 200 meters in all directions from the gravesite. Mobile patrols circled the area, checking vehicles and monitoring pedestrian traffic. Israeli intelligence monitored these preparations through the drones, sensors, and ground-level reporting. The security measures were expected and did not alter the operational plan. The jamming would not affect the drone it operated on. Hardened military frequencies resistant to commercial-grade interference. The lookouts posed no threat as long as the aircraft remained above 2,500 meters. At 13:45, the funeral procession began. Mourners gathered in the streets, carrying the coffin draped in Hezbollah's flag. Chants echoed through the neighborhood. The procession moved slowly toward the cemetery, arriving at 14:12, slightly delayed from the announced start time, a common occurrence in large public funerals. The drone descended to 2,800 meters, positioning itself directly above the cemetery in a tight holding pattern. At this altitude, the aircraft was invisible to the naked eye, a small, dark speck against the sky, indistinguishable from a bird. The descent brought it within optimal strike range while maintaining acoustic stealth. Motor noise at ground level was estimated at 68 decibels, still below the threshold of detection in the ambient noise of the crowd. Electro-optical cameras locked onto the gravesite. Israeli operators identified the target based on pre-briefed physical markers: height, build, position within the crowd. He stood approximately 4 meters from the grave, surrounded by other senior Hezbollah operatives and armed fighters. Crowd density was high, several hundred people packed into the cemetery grounds. This density, which in traditional strikes would be prohibitive, was now part of the operational environment. The strike was designed for precision, a single casualty, minimal fragmentation. At 14:35, the coffin was lowered into the grave. Prayers were recited. The crowd fell momentarily quiet. Then, at 14:37, the armed fighters formed their line, rifles raised. The gun salute was about to begin. Israeli operators received the standby signal from ground assets, the drones, weapon systems armed. A single Spike missile, configured for minimal blast radius, hung from the hardpoint beneath the fuselage. The operator's hand moved to the launch authorization control. The first volley cracked through the air, then the second. Acoustic levels spiked 95 decibels, then 105, then 110 as more rifles joined the salute. Ground assets transmitted the final signal. Acoustic peak reached, conditions optimal. The operator had 5 seconds to launch. The fourth volley erupted. Acoustic levels peaked at 112 decibels. The operator pressed the launch authorization control. The missile separated from the hardpoint at 14 hours, 39 minutes, and 17 seconds local time. Initial descent was unpowered, a silent drop for the first 2 seconds as the weapon fell clear of the aircraft. Then the motor ignited. Flight time from ignition to impact, 9.4 seconds. The drone's electro-optical system tracked the missile's descent in real time, confirming trajectory. The target remained stationary, standing among the mourners, his attention focused on the grave. Hezbollah security personnel scanned the surrounding rooftops and streets, but none looked skyward. The acoustic environment was overwhelming, the fifth volley firing, the sixth preparing, the sound cascading off buildings and reverberating through the cemetery. At 2,800 meters altitude, the drone's motor noise measured approximately 68 decibels at ground level. The missile's flight generated minimal additional sound. Its motor burn was brief, and the weapon's aerodynamic profile was designed for reduced acoustic signature. Against the 112 decibel gunfire, both were inaudible. The missile descended at a near vertical angle, guided by GPS coordinates locked onto the target's position. The warhead was configured for focused fragmentation, lethal within a 3-meter radius, diminishing rapidly beyond that. This configuration reduced collateral casualties but required precision. A deviation of more than 2 meters would leave the target wounded or unharmed. At 14 hours, 39 minutes, and 26 seconds, the sixth volley fired. The missile was 4 seconds from impact. Mourners continued chanting. Children covered their ears. Fighters reloaded for the seventh volley. The target stood motionless, his head bowed in respect. Hezbollah's security apparatus, despite its vigilance, detected nothing. The sky remained unexamined. Impact occurred between the sixth and seventh volleys. The explosion coincided with the tail end of the sixth volley's acoustic peak. For observers in the crowd, the sound was indistinguishable from the ongoing gunfire for approximately 1 second. Then the visual registered, a flash of light near the grave, dust and debris erupting, bodies collapsing. The target was killed instantly. Fragmentation severed his carotid artery and penetrated his skull. He dropped without sound, dead before his body reached the ground. 2 individuals standing within 2 meters sustained shrapnel wounds, non-life-threatening lacerations to the legs and torso. The majority of the crowd, positioned beyond the 3-meter lethal radius, was unharmed. Confusion dominated the immediate response. Mourners closest to the blast scattered, uncertain whether they were under attack or whether an explosive device had detonated prematurely, a not uncommon occurrence in Hezbollah-controlled areas where munitions are stored in civilian buildings. Screams mixed with the residual echo of gunfire. The seventh volley, already prepared, did not fire. Fighters lowered their rifles and turned toward the blast site. Hezbollah security personnel reacted within 3 seconds. Armed operatives moved toward the explosion, weapons raised, scanning for threats. The initial assumption was a ground-level attack. A planted IED, a suicide bomber, or a sniper-triggered explosive. Standard protocol in such scenarios is to secure the perimeter and search for secondary devices or shooters. Rooftop lookouts radioed their positions, reporting no visual contact with attackers. Street patrols confirmed no suspicious vehicles or individuals fleeing the area. The security cordon was intact. No breach had been detected. The drone, meanwhile, had already begun its ascent. Immediately after missile release, the aircraft climbed from 2,800 meters to 3,500 meters, increasing speed and exiting the immediate airspace over the cemetery. Flight time from launch to exit: 52 seconds. By the time Hezbollah security thought to scan the sky, the drone was beyond visual detection range, appearing as nothing more than a distant, ambiguous speck, if visible at all. Israeli operators monitored the aftermath through the drone sensors as it withdrew. Thermal imaging confirmed the target was down. No movement. Hezbollah medics rushed to the body, but their efforts were futile. The strike had been lethal. At 14:41, less than 2 minutes after impact, Hezbollah security began to suspect the attack had come from above. Fragments from the explosion were being collected by operatives trained in post-strike forensics. Within minutes, they identified metal pieces inconsistent with a ground-based IED. The fragmentation pattern suggested an aerial munition. The realization spread through the security network. This had been a drone strike, but the drone itself had left no trace, no early warning, no detection during approach. No visual confirmation during the strike. The acoustic masking had worked precisely as planned. Israeli intelligence units monitoring Hezbollah communications intercepted the confusion. Security commanders demanded answers. How had a drone penetrated undetected? Why had lookouts seen nothing? How had the missile been launched during the funeral itself without anyone hearing the aircraft? The answers would not come quickly. Hezbollah's counter-drone capabilities, while sophisticated by regional standards, had been designed to detect sustained loitering or low-altitude penetrations. The Israeli operation had exploited a gap. A high-altitude strike executed within a narrow acoustic window, using the funeral's own rituals as cover. Within 15 minutes, Israeli command received confirmation through signals intercept and sensor analysis. Target eliminated, operation successful, drone safely exited Lebanese airspace. The strike had taken 9.4 seconds. The planning had taken months. The tactical success was unambiguous. Forensic confirmation came quickly. Hezbollah operatives, trained in explosive ordnance disposal, examined the blast site within 20 minutes of the strike. They recovered fragments of the missile casing metal alloys consistent with Israeli precision munitions. The fragmentation pattern was analyzed. Radial dispersion from a point approximately 1.2 meters above ground level, indicating an airburst detonation rather than a ground-planted device. By 15:10, less than 90 minutes after the explosion, Hezbollah's internal security apparatus had reached preliminary conclusions. The strike had been executed by an Israeli drone using a guided munition. The target had been killed with minimal collateral damage, a hallmark of Israeli precision strike doctrine. But the method of delivery remained unclear. How had the drone approached undetected? Why had security lookouts failed to identify the threat? Intercepted communications, monitored by Israeli signals, intelligence revealed the confusion within Hezbollah's command structure. Security officials demanded explanations from field operatives. Had electronic jamming failed? Had lookouts been negligent? Were there gaps in the radar coverage? The answers emerged slowly. Lookouts reported they had been scanning the sky throughout the funeral, but their attention had been focused on lower altitudes, 1,000 to 1,500 meters, the typical operating range for Israeli strike drones. At 2,800 meters, The Hermes 450 had remained outside their visual search pattern. Radar had detected the drone, but its high altitude and non-threatening behavior, circling rather than descending, had not triggered alarm protocols. The critical factor, however, was acoustic. Interviews with security personnel conducted in the hours after the strike revealed that none had heard the drone's motor during the funeral. The gun salute, they reported, had been deafening. Conversation was impossible. Ambient noise vanished beneath the volleys. The realization began to form. The strike had been timed to the salute itself. Analysis of the acoustic masking concept spread through Hezbollah's intelligence network within 24 hours. Israeli planners had weaponized the funeral ritual, using the sound of Hezbollah's own weapons to conceal the approach and strike of their drone. The precision required synchronizing the missile launch to a 10 to 15-second window during peak acoustic output indicated months of preparation and detailed surveillance of funeral protocols. Lebanese media began reporting the strike on the evening of March 8, though initial accounts were fragmented and often inaccurate. Some outlets described the attack as a car bombing. Others speculated about internal Hezbollah disputes. Official confirmation from Hezbollah came on March 9, the form of a terse statement acknowledging the death of a martyr killed in Israeli aggression, but providing no operational details. Israeli government sources maintained their standard policy of silence. No official claim. No public acknowledgement. Denying responsibility would be implausible given the forensic evidence, but claiming it would invite political complications and potentially expose operational methods. The silence was strategic. Let the evidence speak, but offer no confirmation that might be used diplomatically against Israel. International reaction was muted. The strike had killed a single individual with minimal civilian casualties during an ongoing low-intensity conflict between Israel and Hezbollah. Compared to larger airstrikes or ground incursions, the incident barely registered in global headlines. The United Nations issued a routine statement condemning violations of Lebanese sovereignty. Western governments said nothing publicly, though intelligence agencies in the United States and Europe took immediate interest in the operational details. Within Israeli military and intelligence circles, the operation was assessed as a tactical success. The target had been eliminated. Collateral damage was minimal, 2 wounded, neither critically. The drone had completed its mission and returned safely. Most critically, the acoustic masking doctrine had been validated. The concept moved from theoretical to operationally proven, but the broader consequences extended beyond the immediate strike. Hezbollah now faced a doctrinal problem. Its funeral ceremonies, central to organizational morale and public messaging, had become tactical vulnerabilities. Every gun salute, every predictable ritual, created windows for Israeli strikes. The organization could not abandon funerals, they were too important culturally and politically. But continuing them unchanged meant accepting operational risk. Israeli intelligence monitored Hezbollah's response in the days following the strike. Internal communications revealed debates within the organization's security apparatus. Some officials argued for eliminating gun salutes entirely. Others proposed conducting salutes in enclosed spaces or underground facilities where acoustic masking would be irrelevant. A third faction recommended varying the timing and structure of funerals to eliminate predictability. Within 2 weeks, changes became visible. Hezbollah funerals conducted after March 8 showed altered protocols. Gun salutes were either canceled or performed in separate locations away from the main ceremony. Some funerals were held indoors or in underground bunkers. Attendance was restricted, with tighter security vetting. The public, defiant spectacles that once characterized Hezbollah funerals, became more subdued, more controlled. The operational security failure had forced adaptation. Hezbollah's rituals, once untouchable, had been reshaped by Israeli tactical innovation. The assassination sent immediate ripples through Hezbollah's command structure, but the broader consequences extended far beyond the loss of a single operative. The strike demonstrated a capability that reshaped the strategic calculus for both Hezbollah and other Iranian proxy forces across the region. Hezbollah's first response was organizational. Within 72 hours of the March 8 strike, internal directives circulated among senior commanders restricting attendance at public funerals. High-value personnel division commanders, weapons procurement specialists, intelligence officers were instructed to avoid ceremonies entirely or participate remotely via video link. Funerals for lower-ranking operatives continued, but the prominent figures who once stood graveside as shows of unity and defiance were conspicuously absent. The gun salute, central to Hezbollah's funeral tradition for decades, underwent immediate revision. Some funerals eliminated the ritual entirely. Others relocated it to separate times and locations, firing volleys hours before or after the burial, in open fields far from populated areas where drone strikes would be more easily detected. A few ceremonies moved underground, conducted in bunkers or reinforced facilities where acoustic masking became irrelevant and overhead strikes were impossible. These changes carried costs. Hezbollah's public funerals serve dual purposes: honoring the dead and projecting strength. Large crowds, armed displays, and defiant rhetoric send messages to supporters, rivals, and the broader Lebanese population. Scaling back these ceremonies diminished the propaganda value. Supporters noticed the absence of senior leaders. Rivals interpreted the changes as evidence of Israeli operational dominance. The funerals continued, but their character shifted: less spectacle, more security. Operationally, Hezbollah accelerated investments in counter-drone technology. Procurement requests for acoustic sensors capable of detecting high-altitude UAVs increased. Electronic warfare units received additional resources to expand jamming coverage. Training programs for security personnel now included sections on recognizing drone motor signatures even in high-noise environments. The organization also explored deploying portable radar systems at funeral sites, though the cost and logistical complexity of such measures limited their widespread adoption. The strike's impact extended beyond Hezbollah. Other Iranian-backed groups, Kataib Hezbollah in Iraq, the Houthis in Yemen, pro-Assad militias in Syria, studied the operation closely. Intelligence reports from the region indicated that these organizations began reassessing their own public ceremonies and predictable patterns. The lesson was clear: any routine, any gathering that followed consistent protocols could be exploited by adversaries with sufficient patience and technical capability. Regional analysts noted the strategic implications. Israel had demonstrated the ability to strike targets in environments previously considered too risky, crowded civilian areas during public events. The precision required and the minimal collateral damage challenged assumptions about where and when Israeli operations could occur. For Iranian proxy forces, this created a dilemma: maintain public visibility and risk exposure, or retreat into secrecy and sacrifice the morale and recruitment benefits of public displays. Iran's response, while not publicly acknowledged, manifested in technical assistance. Intelligence sources indicate that Iranian Revolutionary Guard advisors arrived in Lebanon within weeks of the strike, bringing expertise in counter-drone tactics and electronic warfare. Discussions centered on developing acoustic countermeasures, systems that could generate white noise or disruptive frequencies to prevent effective acoustic masking. Whether these systems were deployed or proved effective remains unclear. Politically, the strike generated minimal fallout. The Lebanese government, perpetually weak and divided, issued pro forma condemnations of Israeli violations but took no concrete action. Hezbollah chose not to escalate retaliatory strikes against Israel would invite broader conflict at a time when the organization was recovering from losses sustained in previous clashes. The decision to absorb the strike without immediate retaliation reflected strategic calculation. Preserving force strength for future confrontations outweighed the symbolic value of revenge. Israeli strategic messaging, though never explicit, was unmistakable. The operation conveyed that Israeli intelligence possessed both the surveillance depth to monitor Hezbollah funerals over months and the operational precision to exploit narrow tactical windows. The message was deterrence through demonstration. No environment, no matter how public or heavily secured, guaranteed safety. The strike also represented a doctrinal milestone. For decades, targeted killings followed predictable patterns: airstrikes on vehicles, raids on residences, missile strikes on isolated compounds. The March 8 operation introduced a new model, exploiting an adversary's own cultural rituals to create operational opportunities. It was not merely about killing a target, but about weaponizing the environment itself. The March 8 operation revealed more than a successful tactical innovation. It exposed a fundamental shift in the relationship between predictability and vulnerability in modern conflict. Acoustic masking as a military concept is not new. Submarine commanders have used ocean thermal layers to hide propeller noise for decades. Special operations forces time explosive breaches to coincide with thunder or industrial noise, but applying the principle to urban drone warfare, exploiting an adversary's own ceremonial traditions to create strike windows represented doctrinal evolution. The operation demonstrated that with sufficient surveillance, any pattern becomes exploitable. For non-state actors like Hezbollah, the implications are profound. Public ceremonies serve critical functions: maintaining morale, honoring martyrs, signaling defiance, recruiting supporters. These rituals are not optional, they are embedded in organizational culture and ideology. Yet, the March 8 strike proved that predictability in such events creates tactical opportunities for adversaries willing to invest months of preparation for seconds of execution. The doctrine extends beyond funerals. Every routine gathering, religious observances, political rallies, commemorations that follows consistent protocols can be mapped, analyzed, and potentially weaponized. Intelligence services can build acoustic signature libraries, timing databases, and predictability models for any recurring event. What once provided safety through numbers now creates vulnerability through pattern. Technological developments amplify this shift. Drone capabilities continue advancing. Quieter motors, higher operational ceilings, longer loiter times, more precise munitions. Surveillance systems grow more sophisticated. Better cameras, enhanced audio sensors, AI-driven pattern recognition. The gap between detection and strike narrows. Where adversaries once needed hours to position assets for a kill, they now need seconds if the target follows a predictable pattern. Countermeasures are emerging but face inherent limitations. Acoustic sensors can detect drones at higher altitudes, but distinguishing a distant UAV from ambient urban noise remains technically challenging. Electronic jamming disrupts some drone systems, but not hardened military frequencies. Physical barriers conducting ceremonies underground or in reinforced structures work but eliminate the public visibility that makes such events valuable. The defensive options all carry costs. The arms race dimension is already visible. Israeli defense contractors are refining acoustic masking algorithms, testing them against simulated scenarios. Iranian engineers are developing acoustic countermeasure systems, white noise generators, disruptive frequency emitters, though their effectiveness remains unproven. Other nations with advanced drone programs are studying the operation, extracting principles applicable to their own conflicts. But the deeper transformation is psychological and strategic. For organizations that rely on public presence to maintain legitimacy and support, the calculation has changed. Appearing in public now requires accepting that adversaries may be watching, mapping, preparing. The choice becomes maintain visibility and risk exposure, or retreat into secrecy and sacrifice influence. There is no perfect answer, only trade-offs. The equation has fundamentally shifted. Crowds no longer guarantee protection, they can provide cover for strikes. Noise no longer obscures threats, it can mask them. Cultural rituals no longer offer sanctuary, they create windows. Every predictable gathering, every routine ceremony, exists within a tactical framework where patience and precision can overcome security. Israeli intelligence, through the March 8 operation, proved that the doctrine of acoustic masking works. Hezbollah, through its forced adaptations, acknowledged the vulnerability. Other actors across conflict zones absorbed the lesson. Warfare has always evolved through cycles of innovation and adaptation. The March 8 strike represents one iteration in that cycle, the moment when public ceremonies transitioned from protected space to potential kill zone. The tactical principles are now proven. The technology exists, the doctrine is operational. What remains is application. Every organization conducting public gatherings must now account for the possibility that adversaries are recording, analyzing, preparing. Every funeral, every rally, every commemoration carries operational risk. The rituals continue, but the calculations behind them have changed. The acoustic masking doctrine is no longer theoretical. It is operational reality. And in the conflicts to come, predictability will carry a price measured not in inconvenience, but in lives.